Welcome to my new YouTube channel. Some of you might already know me from my other channel, which is all about landscape photography, but this channel here will be about software development. And yeah, if you don't know me, hello, I'm Michael. I'm a software developer in the automotive industry, and yeah, in this channel I want to share a bit of my experiences, and yeah, I'll do so with a set of videos. So with this first video, I want to kind of kick off this channel, giving a quick overview about what topics I'm going to cover. And yeah, obviously it will be about software development, but yeah, I don't want to just go through some random topics and doing tutorials on this. I want to keep it practical. So what I want to do is I work on some personal projects, and I'm gonna take you along, share with you what I learn, my experiences, how I do things, my workflows, tools I use, and yeah, ideally this will be kind of a learning experience for both you and for me. And yeah, from an experience level, I think this will vary a bit. So I'll certainly have videos for beginners. I'll have also some more advanced topics as the channel progresses, and so you know what a video will be about, I'll always point out in which direction a video will go in the beginning, so you can decide if it's interesting for you or not. And yeah, as a first project, I want to do some web development. So this will be kind of the focus of this channel, the first weeks, month. I'm not sure how long it takes. So back in 2009, I designed a homepage for my landscape photography, basically showing off my best photos and also some business stuff. I have a blog there. And yeah, well, this homepage, I did changes to it over the years, so little tweaks here, little tweaks there, and recently I made it more mobile friendly, but still there's a lot of work to do there. I want to change the design a bit, I want to improve SEO, and yeah, I also want to do some changes to my blog. Now the problem I have is that back when I designed this homepage, I used a software called Dreamweaver, which was widely used back in that time, and yeah, I used the template mechanism that Dreamweaver provided to design my homepage and to create, I think, roughly 30 HTML static pages based on those templates, and also a bunch of PHP pages. The problem now is times have changed. I no longer use Dreamweaver, I use other tools, and if I now want to do a change to my homepage, for example a structural change or simple things like changing the navigation, what I would need to do is go into every of those static pages and yet do the change in every one of them. And this is very bad, so it's also the reason why I try to avoid such changes over the past years. So I'm mostly focused on doing everything I could with CSS, PHP templates and JavaScript. But yeah, now I'm kind of gone as far as I could with this approach. I now really have to do some structural changes to the homepage to make it also a bit more modern. And yeah, for this I definitely have to change the workflow. But I think it's the best I show you what I currently have, so my current setup, and also line out in which direction I want to go now. So first I want to show you the current state of the homepage, and here in OneNote, which I use always to kind of get an overview about the state of things and also about to-dos, I have some points lined out. For one thing, it's responsive. That's what I worked on the last time. And if you go to the developer tools here, and let's just check out what happens when I kind of change the width here. So you see that the gallery already works. It scales quite nicely. Also text gets smaller. Yeah, this is what I worked on, and then we're at kind of the minimum width where it stops scaling. But yeah, this already works quite nice, and also the forms I have, they scale. The galleries, which was most of the work because I had to write a complete gallery here and also do some work to make everything scale. So now down here, thumb scale, the gallery scales, I have a full screen mode. All that stuff was already done. And also what I have a blog, which is based on WordPress. It kind of uses the same design, but yeah, completely WordPress behind it. So this also works. And yeah, as I said, those galleries here, they are already based on PHP. and JavaScript. So PHP is used as a template to create the content, and then I have JavaScript getting in, extracting all the images and all the stuff, and yeah, displaying it. This already done. This is also doing lazy loading of images, so we load quite fast both on mobile devices and yeah, certainly on desktop devices. But what I want to do is here I lined this out as new features, and there might be more, but that's just the first set. So I want to have that this horizontal menu bar, when I make this page smaller, currently just everything gets smaller, but on a mobile device like a cell phone, those buttons are very close together. So what I want to do is, once it gets small, I want to have this switch into kind of a hamburger menu with vertical drop down, where I then have those different navigation elements. And that's quite typical for mobile first homepages. They never use this horizontal menu bar. And yeah, I originally designed this page not for mobile. And back in 2009, that wasn't so much of a thing yet. So this has to be changed. Then yeah, I want to have a new header design. So I'm also gonna do some design in Photoshop and stuff. So if you're interested in that, this is going to be part. I want to include schema.org markup to improve how this homepage is represented in search results, and also make it a little more crawlable for the search bots. I also want to do Open Graph and Twitter cards implementation. So when I share a page, this shows up the way I want with the right image and stuff. And the background image, if you see, I have this one. If I go to full screen, it kind of doesn't scale yet. So you see, as it just keeps its size, so it's not responsive, it's just a body where I included a background. And yeah, this should also change. So these are the first features I want to implement. And yeah, now let me quickly show you my current setup and also where the problems come from. So first of all, one of the tools I use is Laragon, so I can do some offline tests of my homepage before I push them to the server. This supports also PHP and MySQL, so I can also test the WordPress part. Then what I have is Visual Studio Code now, which is quite typical for web developers. They use it a lot. I use it a lot also for other tasks if I'm not writing HTML or JavaScript. It's just easy to use. There are a lot of plugins, and yeah, for example, I use some add-ons here. So for example, Beautify, which I use for the HTML and PHP code, where I have to say for the PHP it doesn't really properly work if you have mixed code. But yeah, this is set up. Then I use Prettier Code Formatter. This one I use for JavaScript, TypeScript, and I actually have set it up. Now it can also do HTML, but I don't apply to the HTML because I use Beautify. So I've set it up to not apply to HTML stuff. For this I use Beautify. And I have some other plugins here, Quokka, some Minifier, and this auto rename tag. Then the next thing you see down here, I have a little git ignore, which means I use git here as version control, but I'm just using it locally to be able to track back when I do changes which don't work, so I can always have a history. And yeah, that's quite easy. I actually have applied git to most of those files here in the dist folder, so I have my page already in this dist folder. And normally if you use git, you wouldn't commit the stuff which you have in the distribution. What you will have is a source folder where the source is, and then this gets compiled and ends up in the dist folder, and you would only commit the source. But since I don't have a real source, I all did this back in the days with Dreamweaver and created all those pages. I have those under version control, so I can do changes and get back. And I also use this now when I now change to some new system. I can always compare if I have generated stuff which ends up here in dist. I can compare it, the generated stuff, to the original. For example, for this about page, if this is later generated somehow, when it ends up here, I'll get a diff from Git, and I can see if it still works, because I want to stay compatible. Now to sync this stuff to the homepage, I use WinSCP, which is an easy program. I can connect to my server via FTP and then have WinSCP automatically sync so it finds out which files need update, and I can manually also select what I want to push up there. So that's quite easy. All free tools, and yeah, that's the nice thing nowadays. If you're a web developer, you don't have to pay to get the tools. All those tools are free. There are so many add-ons. There are so many NPM packages you can use. It's just great. But at the same time, it can also be quite hard because there's so much out there. So in this jungle of tools and add-ons, it's not easy always to find what you really need. Yeah, and was also the first step for me. Find out how I can kind of achieve those changes. Yeah, and to do this, to find out what you need, it's always good in software development to write down some requirements. So I just did this here again in OneNote, and it's just a first rough sketch. I might elaborate on this a bit more and do some more requirements, but what I want to keep the old content structure for the distribution. So whatever is here, I want to keep this structure. Then what I want to use templates to allow quicker changes, navbar, footer, sidebar, stuff like that. I want to easily change it and have it applied to all pages. And also those templates, they have to work on both HTML and PHP. Then I want support of some kind of functions or macros, so I can customize some content, for example, the Open Graph stuff. It's not just copy paste to each side. I have to change some fields, and for this it would be nice to use some kind of function where I can apply stuff based on the current name of the page and stuff like that. I want in the end to have a single minified CSS, as I currently also have, but I do this manually now, and also a single minified JS. So jQuery, my gallery, cookie consent bar, all I use should be one file, because this also stuff which always, if you do some SEO checks, this always things which it's complained about, because if you have many assets of your site, those need to get loaded one after another, and this takes more time because of the way HTTP works. So basically for everything you request, there's a new connection, new download, and the less assets you have, the faster your site basically loads. This being said, I also already selected some tools I definitely want to use. I'll use Node.js, which I also use a lot at work. You use this just as a base to get access to NPM, the packages you need to get the setup for the build system running. So this is already installed, I have this. And then I looked around at different build systems which could help me to build my homepage from kind of a set of templates and content. And for JavaScript, also for my gallery, I use Webpack. Then there are other things like Rollup and stuff, which are more focused on real single page applications, but not so much on what I have here, a site with many HTML static pages. Also, it's a lot of configuration centric stuff in those, so Webpack can be a real pain to do simple things, I think. And I looked around and found this Gulp, which looks like you're just writing some JavaScript code. So you define some task and then you run those tasks. And for me, this is very easy to understand. And also I found a good tutorial. For Gulp, as for all the other systems, you have some plugins. One of those is Nunchucks. And this seems to be a very flexible template engine. It also supports macros. What I want to do also, Minifile is another plugin you can use, and you can do concatenation of different JavaScript files. So kind of fulfilling many of my requirements, but I really don't know until I really tried it. So the next video will be getting a very quick setup. So basically not for the complete page. I'll just take one page, maybe one PHP file, one of the HTML files, and try to get a setup running with Gulp and Nunchucks and see how this goes. And then I'll finally decide if I want to proceed with that. So I hope you like this little overview of what to expect in the next videos and what's the current state of my homepage. And I hope there's also something on the roadmap which is interesting for you. So as I said, we're gonna go from my static page without any templates to a setup, hopefully, which uses Gulp, Nunchucks. Then I have some templates. I'll use some macros, have to find out how they work. I'll explain what I learn. Then next thing, I go through the features I want to do. So doing some design, redesigning in Photoshop. So you learn some of the workflows I use there. And yeah, from there, whatever I find needs to be improved, I'm gonna find out how to improve it. And I'm gonna show you, especially I think what's interesting, we're gonna be the schema.org stuff and also implementing those open graph in a flexible manner. So yeah, I haven't thought about how this is gonna be done in detail, but I'm sure that I can use Gulp and this build system to help me with that. And we'll find out soon. So if you like this video, leave a thumbs up, make sure to subscribe, and see you soon.